And Shirleen is a OT student at Ohio State. I told her I feel like she's way farther along because she's so knowledgeable, but that's went to school and graduated from. So I always love having students with us. And in my biased opinion, I just love how practical occupational therapy approaches can be in all different.
Mm-hmm.
And sleep is actually technically an occupation
Mm-hmm.
activity, even though we often forget it is. So, without further ado, Shirlene, thanks again for being here.
Yeah, of course. Okay, let's see.
And yeah, and feel free like throughout to use the chat. I'll keep an eye on it. Uh,
Okay, I can't see it from here, so
sure.
you just let me know.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
Okay, so hi everyone. Thank you for coming to this presentation. So today I'm presenting on how to make sleep work for you. I loved hearing your guys's or like tips and tricks for how you get to sleep. So I'm going to be talking about all of that during this presentation. And like Angela mentioned, I'm in the occupational therapy program at OSU. I'm in second year. So let's get started. So my objective for this presentation is to share practical and flexible sleep hygiene practices so that caregivers and families can create realistic routines that promote rest and wellness. And I really wanted to emphasize the realistic part just because I know that life doesn't isn't always easy, and you might have a certain plan for the way you want things to go, but it doesn't always pan out. So I do have some strategies for that as well. So this is just like the table of contents. I'm gonna do an intro, and we're gonna focus on three major areas in regards to sleep. We have mindset, environment, and routines. So mindset, I'm also gonna talk about relaxation, meditation, your sleep environment, and how we can make that conducive to sleep, and your routines and why it's so relevant to sleep. Okay, we kind of talked a little bit about this, but for our icebreaker, um, what is your trick to get to sleep or to get others to sleep? I'm going to get into what they recommend the hours should be. Before I do, I'm going to define sleep hygiene. Sleep, according to the OA Occupational Therapy Practice Framework, sleep is one of the 8 areas of occupation essential for health and participation. Sleep hygiene refers to habits and environmental factors that support restful sleep. So, just the same way we have hygiene for our bodies, we should also have hygiene for our sleep, making sure that our environment is set aside for sleep. You sleep in a dark, cool room. You try not to do other things in bed besides sleep and rest and that sort of thing. Um,
You forgot one thing.
yes.
Just keep it real here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait.
And
Yeah.
Sorry, that's just
No,
yeah.
I mean that's an occupation too.
Yes.
Um, so according to the CDC, school age children need 9 to 12 hours of sleep. Teenagers need 8 to 10 hours, and adults should get 7 or more hours. And I thought this was kind of interesting because I remember like for teenagers being in high school and having class at 8 a.m. every single day, it was difficult to get those 8 hours. And I think those bad sleep practices can start early, especially if you're doing school and maybe you're in a sport or maybe you have clubs and activities. And I think also in like society, productivity is really emphasized. So those like bad sleeping habits can get ingrained pretty early. I feel like children get a little bit more leeway, but at the same time, children don't like sleeping. I know when I was a kid, I didn't like having to go to bed. But it is something that I think you can get better at with age.
Can I ask a quick question about the hours of sleep?
Yes.
Okay, so I read something, this was quite a few years back, but it was about how um because little kids need more sleep, if they have to go to school early, then it makes them less productive. But teenagers who need less sleep, sometimes, depending on what time they have to go to school, it just kind of like as a society, we probably need to rethink what time kids go to school.
Mm-hmm.
Like teenagers probably would do better going to school at, say, 9 o'clock, and the younger
Mm-hmm.
ones going to school earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Are
just
you,
wanted to
yeah, are you
share
like
that with you.
referring to their like sleep schedules? Like teenagers are
Yeah.
more, I've heard of that too. I've heard of that too. And I think
Okay.
it's backed by science that teenagers should be going to bed later than waking up later and like having that kind of shifted over. And I think there was some policy change to have schools um, start an hour later. I know for my brothers, they're in high school right now, and every Friday they get to show up to school 30 minutes later, which isn't a
Mm.
huge difference. Maybe it's a difference to some people, but I think there is some policy change around that because
Mm.
like sleep deprivation is like huge for high schoolers.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's really relevant. Okay, so for some facts about sleep, I think the funny thing about sleep is that if you were to list all the benefits, like and say that it was in a pill, everybody would want to buy it. But when you say it's sleep, people aren't as interested. But anyways, so one is getting enough sleep helps you get sick less often because it supports your immune system, helps you fight infections. It helps you stay at a healthy weight. Poor sleep is linked to weight gain, obesity, also increase in cortisol and stress. So sleeping more reduces stress. It can improve your mood. It can help you like manage your emotional ups and downs more easily. Sleep is one of like the major recommendations by like a healthcare professional to treat a mood disorder. It's like one of the first things that you address because when you fix your sleep, it really like benefits every other part of your mind, your life, that sort of thing. Sleep improves heart health and metabolism, lowers the risk of type 2 diabetes. Increased sleep leads to better attention and memory. And it also keeps you safer. Like, I know for a lot of people, I don't know how many of you like work the night shift. A lot of people in healthcare work the night shift. And it's actually dangerous because we're not really meant to stay up all night and maybe you didn't get enough sleep that night either. So there's a risk of motor vehicle accidents when you're not getting enough sleep. So you know getting enough sleep mitigates that risk. So here are some facts about what sleep does for the brain. So it helps memory. It turns what you learned during the day into long-term memory. It kind of like consolidates that information. It regulates your emotions, helps keep your mood balanced and reduces stress. It gives you like it helps you have a more positive mindset. It boosts thinking, improves focus, problem solving, and creativity. And it cleanses the brain. Like every night your brain is like cleansed in cerebral fluid and it removes waste and keeps brain cells healthy. Okay, so how to make sleep work for you? For me, I think it really helps to just keep it simple and know that rest is the most important thing. But before I explain that, in school for me, we learned about sympathetic versus parasympathetic response, like rest and digest versus flight or fight. And so for sleep, you really want to be in that parasympathetic response where you're resting and digesting. And essentially, you want to lower your heart rate to be able to sleep, which sounds simple, but of course, it isn't always easy. For example, if you know that you're supposed to sleep and wake up at a certain time, maybe you're supposed to wake up early and you're watching the clock, you're stressed out, you're thinking about all the things you have to do. And each hour that passes, you just stress yourself out more. And the more you're unable to sleep. So it just creates like that vicious cycle. Um, Another example is you're sleeping great on the bus, or maybe like at my like for my parents, sometimes they fall asleep at the movie theater, and then when you get home, suddenly you can't fall asleep. Maybe that same night, or you want better sleep. You want to be able to go to sleep at a certain time, but each night you struggle to meet that time on the clock. So I'm going to be talking about these three areas: mindset, environment, and routine, and how we can use them to sleep better, but in a way that kind of works for you. So focus area one, mindset and relaxation. So I wanted to talk about this one first because I feel like how you feel about something really determines how you do it. So if you approach sleep with anxiety, like this I must sleep now kind of energy, your sympathetic nervous system activates. You're like your fight or flight, which has the opposite effect on your sleep. And this is like a teaching from dialectic behavioral therapy. So, how we feel about sleep, whether we see it as a chore or something safe and comforting, affects how we approach it. If we approach it with fear or pressure, it doesn't work. Some people might think of sleep as self-care. Some people might think of sleep as a chore, and all of these things can affect how you go about your sleeping routine. So this like sort of like sleep hygiene protocol cheat sheet is from the Dialectic Behavioral Therapy workbook. And I found it a few years ago, and it really changed my mind about sleep and how I approach it. And some of its tips and tricks, I still use them to this day. And it has a lot of things, but I'm going to focus on a few of them right now. So, number one, build a consistent routine, optimize your sleep environment, mind your daytime habits. So, the things you do throughout the day are all going to affect your sleep, whether that's taking caffeine, nicotine, alcohol, trying to do things in moderation, but those things are under your discretion. Managing wakefulness at night. So you've set everything up, you're ready to go to bed, but you still feel very awake. A good thing to do is to give yourself 30 to 60 minutes to fall asleep. Don't expect yourself to fall asleep even within 20 minutes. It can take up to an hour to fall asleep, and that's pretty normal actually. Stay calm, don't catastrophize or decide that your sleep failed. If you're calm but awake, get out of bed for a non-stimulating activity. I think someone mentioned that. That's a really good habit to do. If you're struggling to fall asleep, don't just lay in bed. It's good to get up and try to do something, again, without screens, but try to do something like maybe read a book or make a cup of tea, something that's relaxing to you. If you're feeling anxious or ruminating on negative thoughts, a good thing to do is some of these relaxation skills, deep breathing, meditation. So I feel like meditation is mentioned a lot, but not really what it is exactly, or like I don't know. I feel like it can come off sometimes as like woo woo. So to me, meditation is being in the present moment, because whenever you're in the present moment, you're not where you're whatever your stresses are. You're not in that place. You're in the safety of your bedroom, in the safety of your bed. So to me, it's giving yourself a mini vacation from outside circumstances. Anything could be meditative. Cooking could be meditative. Gardening, singing, or any other activity that just, when you do it, you're really present in the moment. So in bed, you don't really want to be cooking or like doing anything. So your breathing becomes meditative. So when you're meditating, you can focus on your breath. And each time your mind wanders to something else, your to-do list, or maybe even like groceries you have to pick up tomorrow, that sort of thing. Whenever your mind wanders, you can bring it back to your breath. And that's like one breath, one rep, like an exercise. And so when you keep doing this, you eventually strengthen that muscle in your mind. That makes meditation easier, which means it's easier to be in the present moment. That's also why I think it's important to meditate at some point during the day, even for 10 minutes, because again, you're strengthening that muscle. So then when it's nighttime and it is time to go to bed and it is time to sleep, it's easier for you to be in the present moment and relax, because essentially what you've done is practice the muscle of relaxation throughout the day, if that makes sense. Is there any questions on that? Okay. So going back to sleep hygiene and what you can do when you can't sleep, you can also focus on bodily sensations, not the racing thoughts. I think someone mentioned body scanning. That's a really good one. You can remind yourself worries in the night are normal and things will feel different in the morning. You can read a boring book, or maybe just like find a newspaper or a book that you've read a million times. As a last resort, listen to calm monotone radio. I really like NPR, like public radio, or nothing too like inflammatory, like the news or anything like that. Again, try not to look at screens, like the blue light. This is like a huge thing, but like the blue lights that emanate from screens and computers and maybe your phone is like contradictory to sleep, so it's not a good thing to do. Another thing that's worked for me that I haven't heard many people talk about is moving my eyes side to side. So literally you close your eyes, you're in bed, and you move your eyes side to side. And this is also used in EMDR therapy, or like rapid eye movement therapy, basically mimicking how your eyes move when you're in REM sleep, which is the deepest state of sleep, and is also the state where your brain is healing or like being cleansed. And so that's also like a relaxing thing to do. I also think it mimics our ancestors when they would look out in the horizon. So basically, that motion of looking out at a plane and widening your perspective is relaxing, because you would only do that after you've secured food, you've secured a place to rest, you're looking out at the sunset. And so that kind of like triggers our brain to relax. Versus when you're stressed out and anxious, you might notice that you get tunnel vision and your eyes become very focused. So it kind of has the opposite relaxing effect. So this is one relaxing activity to do before bed. So lie comfortably in bed and focus on a single point in the room. So for me, I might focus on the wall across from me. And you imagine that everything else disappears except the four walls around you. Breathe slowly and deeply, bringing attention back to your breath whenever your mind wanders. You could also move your eyes back and forth if you'd like. So what this is going to do is support your self-regulation, reduce stress, and promote occupational balance. And it also shifts the focus from anxious or stressful thoughts back to that present moment that I was talking about, and induces that parasympathetic response, or like your rest and digest. So it's really beneficial for that and for sleep. Okay. Is there any questions about that? I feel like I shared a lot.
Sorry, this isn't a question. I don't know if there's any research behind it, but sometimes when I start feeling that anxiety about falling asleep, or like my mind's racing about work things or whatever it is, I just make myself think of something completely random, like the first thing that comes to my head, and then I kind of like follow it as a story. And a lot of times it doesn't even make sense, but just like having like a quick shift of like thinking of whatever is different than what's causing me anxiety. And sometimes it actually does help. But I don't know if that might just be me or not. But sometimes it literally is like unicorns on a rainbow. Literally, it doesn't have to make sense at all, but that's helped me.
So I think the major thing is, even if you're just laying in bed in the dark and you're resting, that's more beneficial to you than it's still beneficial to you. It's still a form of rest. So don't get too stressed out, like, oh, I'm gonna be so sleep deprived tomorrow. It's gonna be okay, and you'll have another chance. You know, we have our whole life to keep practicing this. So just focusing on that and remembering to have like some self-compassion for yourself. It also helps to do these things, um, like accompanying it with relaxing things in your environment, dimming the lights, again, like a cool environment, maybe putting on some relaxing music. That can also help with the sleep. Okay, for my second focus area is environment. So why does environment matter? So picture this: you had a long day, you're ready for bed, you lay down, but you're unable to rest. Why? So environmental factors such as light, sound, and comfort of sleep space are critical contexts that influence the ability to engage in the occupation of sleep. So basically, your environment has a huge impact on your mental state. So referring back to sleep hygiene and optimizing your sleep environment, they recommend that when you're prepared to sleep, to turn off the light and keep the room quiet and the temperature comfortable and relatively cool. You can try an electric blanket if you're cold, putting your feet outside of the blanket, or turning on a fan directed toward your bed if you're hot, or wearing a sleeping mask, using earplugs, or turning on a white noise machine if needed. I know for me, I really like to sleep with a fan, even if it's like winter. I just really like the noise of the fan. So this is an activity idea that relates to that. This is kind of like a family wind down routine. So you can create a visual bedtime schedule. You can use pictures or simple words depending on how old your children are. You can include steps like brush teeth, read story, lights out. And so this will support that habit formation pretty early. And if it's late, you can shorten it, you can lengthen it, whichever fits your routine better. I really like this one. So you could also create like a sleep toolkit if you have like a bin or like an empty box in your house. So build a toolkit with items that help with relaxation, weighted stuffed animals, lavender lotion, soft music playlist, cozy blanket. Caregivers and kids can experiment to discover what feels calming. So this supports self-regulation, sensory processing. Families identify individualized sensory strategies that lower arousal before sleep. So this can encourage kids to choose one tool each night and it gives them ownership. It also might make them more excited to go to sleep if they know they can go choose their like special item. Does anyone have like ideas of what they would put in their toolkit? I will say, I guess not everything in their toolkit has to be what you bring directly into bed. I could see you could put like maybe a coloring book in there. Like in this image, they have like a cup of tea, maybe a cup of like warm milk right before bed. Those could be good items too. I will say like deep breathing, kind of similarly to meditation. I feel like they don't get enough attention for like the benefits that they have because they just seem so simple to people. I don't know why, but for deep breathing, it's like huge. For me personally, I find it like really positively affects my sleep. I would do 30 deep breaths, and each morning I can never remember. And then another trick to it is to count backwards and to start at like a random number. So for me, I start at like 31, and that's supposed to help too. And for me, when I wake up in the morning, I can never remember if I made it to one because I think I would fall asleep before I would make it to one. So I would say don't sleep, pun intended, on these like strategies of deep breathing and meditation. I feel like they're very huge. Okay, so for my third focus area, routines. So why do routines matter? Why is it relevant to sleep? So consistent sleep wake time strengthens circadian rhythm, but the strictness can backfire, which I think someone already mentioned, revenge bedtime procrastination, especially so in case anyone doesn't know what it is. It's when you stay up later because you felt like you didn't have enough time to yourself during the day or your day was very stressful, and so this is the only time you have to yourself where you can kind of like relax and do what you want to do. And you're also trying to like procrastinate having to start the next day and like starting that whole stressful sort of routine over. And it can backfire because uh, like I mentioned before, society is very productivity focused. Everything has to be a set time. And when you want, when you know you're supposed to do something, you don't always want to do it. And it just becomes kind of like a vicious cycle because whether or not you go to bed early or late, you still have to wake up at a certain time, then you're sleep deprived, and it's just the whole thing. But this book by Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep, the author stresses routine is the more powerful tool than sleep routine is more powerful than total sleep hours in regulating the body clock. So beyond longer commute times, there are 5 key factors that powerfully changed how much and how well we sleep. So one is constant electric light as well as LED light, regularized temperature, caffeine, alcohol, and a legacy of punching time cards. And I added in here that technically your sleep routine begins right when you wake up and look at the sunlight. And I think the best context to look at this in is to think about ancestral times, think about like caveman times when they didn't have alarm clocks, they didn't have phones and that sort of thing. The one thing that controlled their sleep wake cycle was the sun. So light was a huge proponent. Um, so it wasn't like an alarm. It's getting out of that cave and seeing that first light of the horizon that really triggered your wake, and that started the whole cycle all the way until bedtime. So that's how sleep routine begins right when you wake up, and so that's why they also recommend that right when you wake up to look at the sunlight, and maybe after dinner go take a walk outside and look at the sunset. and that can really help improve your sleep. So for activity ideas, so morning light, a caregiver or like an adult builds a morning ritual of stepping outside or sitting near a bright window within 30 minutes of waking. And this could also be a good self-care activity. You can do it while maybe reading the newspaper, journaling, whatever you like to do. But also, for whatever reason you can't have light in the morning, especially during winter time, it might be pretty dark outside even at early times. A really good thing to get, I would say off Amazon, but you can also just find it at the thrift store or like anywhere, is to get a lamp, like a sunlight lamp or a sunlight alarm clock, and it kind of mimics the daylight and helps you with setting that circadian rhythm. So for OT rationale, exposure to natural light anchors circadian rhythm, making it easier to fall asleep at night. And like I said, you can also pair it with something enjoyable so it doesn't feel like such like a rule that you're trying to implement in your life. It can be something more fun. Another activity is a protected wind down routine. So you could set your phone or household alarm 30 to 60 minutes before you go to bed as a wind down signal, because like I mentioned, it could take up to an hour to fall asleep, which is normal. So it's better to just like allot yourself that time. And you can choose one calming ritual, reading, stretching, light snack prep for the next day. Nothing to stress you out too much. And this protects against revenge bedtime procrastination, because that time where you might have been scrolling on your phone, um, I'm only mentioning because that's something that I struggle with as well. You could actually be intentional about it and have it a set part of your routine, and it can also be more enjoyable that way. So I really like these two because both of them they're at different parts of the day, but they both help you get in that sleep mindset. This is more for children or grandchildren. You can create a family wind down checklist. So you can make a ladder of 3 to 4 bedtime steps for kids, brush teeth, pajamas, story, lights out, whatever you want to do. And it doesn't exactly have to look like this visual I have up here. You can, create it the way that fits for you and your family. And so parents and children climb the ladder together each night. You can shorten it if you need to. You can lengthen it if you need to. So this shared routine creates predictability and co-occupation, reducing bedtime resistance. So your children or your grandchildren know that each day at this time we're going to do this, then after that we're going to do this. And also maybe creating this visual and putting it up on a wall can make it more enjoyable. They would want to complete the next step when it's time to get ready for bed. You can also help, like, allow your kids to help design or decorate the ladder. This just allows them to have ownership over the activities and feel like um, it's something more self-directed versus them being told what to do. So for feedback, I mentioned that routines begin in the morning. So for you guys, what do you find easier to change, your evening or your morning routine? Okay, so now I have a couple case studies kind of to wrap up everything that I've talked about. I'm going to cover those 3 domains that I talked about, and I'm going to go over these scenarios, go over the answers, and see what your guys' responses are. I guess you could argue for any one of them sometimes, but let's just start here with case study number 1. So Maria, caregiver of 2 young kids, notices that her children get sleepy in the car, but resist bedtime at home. Which environmental change would most likely help? So letting kids watch a show in bed so they feel tired, dimming lights and lowering household noise 30 minutes before bedtime, or giving kids a sugary snack to burn off energy.
B.
Correct. Yeah, that's the correct answer. I can see how A could also work. I feel like that's something that my mom would have tried on me and my siblings when we were younger, which it definitely helps. Like like I mentioned before, falling asleep to a show that you like. The only negative thing about it is that it creates reliance on that, and it also diminishes your quality of sleep because again, you're like letting in that blue light. So
Well, my husband and I don't agree with a TV in the bedroom.
really, so do you not have one in your room?
No, and no, that's because we did. I'm raising my grandson now, so with my daughter, I let them have a TV in their room and never did see them. They were always up in the room, and so yeah, the bedroom is no TV. You know, the bedroom, like my grandson's bedroom, doesn't have any toys in it. He just has his bedroom furniture, and stuffed animals, and his clothes that in the closet. No toys.
Well, that's really good sleep hygiene.
Yeah, and he's been a great sleeper from he's a great sleeper. He's only gotten up a handful of times to come and get in bed with us, and we carry him right back. See, we don't let him stay. We carry him right back.
That's good. Yeah, it teaches him to self-regulate and sleep on
Yes,
his own.
exactly.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so for this second case study, James works a late shift and sleeps during the day. He struggles to fall asleep because his room is bright. What should he try first? Blackout curtains or a sleep mask? Drinking coffee before bed to force a crash? Leaving the TV on to block out daytime noise?
A.
Yeah, that one's kind of easy. Yeah. Okay, so this is for domain 2, mindset and relaxation. We're going to look at case study number 3. Anna lies in bed watching the clock, getting more anxious as the minutes pass. What's the best strategy for her? Get up and do a calming activity until she feels sleepy again? Keep lying in bed, trying harder to sleep? Or turn on bright lights to distract herself?
What are our guesses? Andrew said A in the chat.
Yeah, A is the correct answer. I think for me, if I had seen this question a few years ago, I think I would have said B could be a possible answer. Um, yeah, I think I don't know if anyone else struggles with that, like knowing that it's okay to take a break from sleep and to get up and do something instead of lying in bed if you can't sleep. But yeah, doing a calming activity is definitely the best option. So for case study number 4, David listens to comforting music before bed, even though sleep hygiene rules say no electronics. What's the best perspective here? If it helps him relax and fall asleep, it's a useful tool. He should stop immediately since music ruins sleep. Music is only helpful if it's played loudly to drown out other sounds. Yeah, A is definitely the best response. I think with music, we're like in the age where there's a lot of devices to play music on that you don't even have to look at a screen. Like someone mentioned the Alexa, you could do Google Home. I know whenever I visit my uncle, they use the Google Home and just be like, "Hey Google, play Rain, play music," and it's like really relaxing for the younger ones, and they're able to sleep pretty easily. Um, so I think, yeah, there's a lot of like electronics that you could use that wouldn't harm your sleep at all. So for the third domain, routine, case study number 5. Claire, a single mom, often stays up late scrolling on her phone after her kids are asleep. She knows it's cutting into her sleep, but she calls it her me time. What's a realistic OT informed strategy? Set a wind down alarm 30 minutes before bedtime and pick one enjoying but calming activity. Eliminate all evening downtime completely. Add more chores at night to feel productive before bed. Yeah, I'm hoping I didn't accidentally make them all A, but
Yeah,
yeah.
Mom just said, a theme with the A.
Yeah, A is the correct answer. You definitely don't want to eliminate all evening downtime, and I think that's the huge thing is like doing work or like productive things so close to bed. Like even exercising too close to bed can negatively impact your sleep. Yeah, you don't need to add more chores close to bed. And for case study number 6, Luis wants to improve his family's bedtime routine, but finds it stressful when his kids resist. Which approach best supports occupational balance? Create a bedtime ladder with short and long versions of the routine, stick to the exact same rigid steps every night, no matter what, or skip the routine completely if kids resist.
Hey.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't realize I gave them away. But yeah, A is definitely the correct answer. I think creating like routines and habits, it kind of has a there's kind of like a resistance there where you if you make it or there's kind of like a balance that you have to play with where if you make it too rigid it makes it too hard to follow, but if you make it too loose then you never follow it at all. So I really like the idea of charts and like ladders and like giving yourself options but not too many options, because I kind of mentioned this like in my last presentation. By the time it's time to go to bed, your brain is worn out, so you have decision fatigue. You've made decisions all day long. It's kind of difficult to make a decision right before bed. So I think definitely having like visual cues and like having routines that you can fall back on and kind of use as scaffolding can make a huge impact. Okay, that's all. Thank you guys for listening to this presentation. I hope it was helpful, and these are my references.
We give Shirleen a round of applause. That was so many strategies. We loved it. Thank you so much.